Lights out. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of Talktainmentradio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
All righty. From coast to coast and around the entire planet. This is TalkTainmentRadio.com, and we go where you go because we are the world's greatest radio. You are in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and again, this is radio the way it should be heard. Mr. Fuller is on the line, and thank you for calling, Mr. Fuller. We will get to Mr. Fuller in just a second or two. Mr. Fuller is the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism. I know I'm a victim. Are you? I know I'm a victim, but I'm learning about what's going on and how to produce justice. You need to get a copy of his book. And the book is a good book, and you can go to producejustice.com, and what is going to come up on the screen will be all the information that you need to get a copy of his book. And if you're going to be doing this, it is my recommendation that you get this book because we all need to be guided. And Mr. Fuller has put this book together for us to read and to begin to understand, as he stated in the beginning of the program, every week. If you do not understand racism, which is white supremacy, what it is and how it works, that's it. That's it in its nutshell. And he also says, and it's true, that all problems can be solved by what? Asking questions. So if you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, anything else that you understand will be, you're going to be confused. So that's why you need to get the book to begin to understand racism and white supremacy, what it is, and then how it works. You can go to producejustice.com and get that book. And also with that is a word guide. You need that also, in my opinion, to understand, words. Very important. And I will have Mr. Fuller later on in the show discuss that. So producejustice.com, make sure you get your copy of that book. And while I'm on this, listen, we are trying to go on the program for an additional hour and for the funding of the show. So we need you to send your donations in, and right now donations are slow, so we need you to pick it up. If this program is important to you, and apparently all around the world it is important. So if it is, then donate to the Compensatory Concept, care of K&E World Network, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio 43206. No personal checks, only money orders or bank checks will be accepted. And I will repeat that 2 or 3 other times in the program. Okay. Now, let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And Mr. Fuller, how are you this morning?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Okay, we're going to start today's program off with your thoughts that you would like to open up the show with.
Well, my thoughts, recently people have been, I might say, that making suggestions that more time be spent addressed to their questions. So I'm going to try to do that today, just go directly to the questions if you have anybody who's calling in.
Okay.
Do you have anybody on the line now?
Yes, we do have one. Okay. All righty. More questions. Okay. That will be the title of the program today. Okay. Are we ready for the? Okay. Okay, caller number one, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Hello, I'm calling in to y'all have a new tracking system and so forth for which you can hear, and it won't come in.
Okay, now I was told this morning, sir, that we are working on that problem so that it can be resolved. We received a lot of or numerous inquiries about that. And so
yeah,
now,
this the second week.
Yeah,
this the second week.
I understand, sir, and we're working. The technician is working on it now, and some changes will be made. Hey, Ed, will that be up maybe by next week? It might be up by next week, but I'm not sure. But they are working on it, sir, and I do apologize for the station, for any technical difficulties that you and others may be receiving. But we are working on it right now as we speak.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, you are welcome. Okay. We have another call? Okay. Okay, line number two. Go ahead. You are on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead. What is your question?
Yes, is that me, sir?
That is you, sir.
Yeah, say, I wanted to get an opinion on this situation that happened up in New York City with this Chinese officer, Peter Liang. You know the Chinese over the killing of a Kai Gurley, an innocent black man, in a New York City project. I don't know if it was Brooklyn or Bronx. Now, this Chinese officer was afraid, I guess, and he just started rattling off a lot of shots for no reason at all. He figured that if he was in a black project, he can just shoot at random and get away with it. The Chinese people say that if white officers can kill a black and get away, we should be able to. In other words, black lives don't matter to them. I've said this before. And they're also saying that, I'd like to get Mr. Fuller's opinion there on this whole thing here.
All righty. Thank you for calling. Mr. Fuller?
You can expect it to happen over and over and over and over and over again.
Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
You can expect it to happen over and over and over again. Get the balloons, get the candles, get the teddy bears ready under this system. We're in a prison system. We're prisoners of war. So in that prison system, anybody who is assigned to be a guard or a guardian in the prison system, the guardians of the system, and we're in a prison system called white supremacy, by the way. That's the name of the prison. So it's guarding the system of white supremacy. So anybody who is assigned to carry a gun and a badge in that system, that is the system they're supposed to be protecting. A person who is classified as white understands this for the most part. And sometimes even white people are gunned down by people with badges and guns because they may be a threat to the status quo. The status quo is the government of white supremacy. There is no other government on the planet that's worthy of even mentioning. It doesn't exist. Now, people talk about a government. They talk about the American government. That's an ideal. Everybody on the planet should want to be an American. Why? Because it's a wonderful concept. I think Gandhi was asked once. Sometimes you have a pseudonym or a word that means the same thing as the word America. Sometimes they call it Western civilization. And Gandhi was once asked, according to something I read, Mr. Gandhi, what do you think of Western civilization? And he said, sounds like a good idea, meaning it's something that doesn't really exist. You don't have a civilization nowhere on this planet. You're not going to find it. Not in what we call Africa, not in what you call Asia, China, anywhere. And the Northwestern Hemisphere, what we call the American Hemisphere, or hemispheres. You're not going to find it. People are not civilized. There's no evidence of civilization nowhere on this planet. So you have to expect this. And if you have color in your skin, expect to be gunned down at any time, either by a white supremacist directly. Of course, they prefer to do things like they'll hire someone, a black person, or someone who is labeled as a Chinese, and assign them to go around and say, hey, you got a blank check to gun down black people. This is supposed to be understood, even by black officers. They're supposed to understand that. Be careful who you gun down now. Make sure there's got to be somebody of color. But if you gun down somebody that doesn't have color, you might be in trouble with your supervisor, and your supervisor is always, ultimately, somebody classified as white. I hope I've answered that question.
Thank you very much, caller, for your call. What line, Galen? Line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question? Okay, then what line then? Okay, line number 3. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bob and Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
This is Carolyn from Georgia. Mr. Fuller, when you talk about that area of religion, and you were saying what does it require their religion to do when you asking them questions, what's the codified response to them saying that God don't see color and that, their God don't see racism and, he's going to punish the white supremacists. So basically they saying it requires them to do nothing. They sit back and wait on God to fix racism. What's the codified response to that?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fuller?
Well, that's the answer that they're giving. God didn't require them to do anything. They just told you. See, that's why I say that's a very important question. What does your religion require you to do? Now, if the person says, well, my religion requires me to wait on God to handle everything, and I don't have to do nothing, the person gave you the answer. That's what their religion requires. So you don't know what to expect of them. You might know what to expect of God, but you don't know what to expect of them. Your question was, what does your religion require you to do, sir? See, that's a loaded question that goes right to the truth. And I mean, it reveals everything. I mean, people can't dance around that. And when they do, any move that they make, they expose themselves because that's an explosive exposition, you might say, in that category type of question. It's designed to reveal the truth. What's the name of your religion? Most religions have names. And what does your religion require you to do? God already knows what God is going to do. But if you have a religion, your religion may require you to do something. Do something. D-O. That's a very important word. What does your religion, not my religion, the other fellow's religion across the fence, what does your religion require you to do in all 9 areas of activity? Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, that's other people's religions, sex, and war. Most religions have requirements. But if a person tells you, my religion doesn't have any requirements for me, except one, that is, let God handle it. Now, if a person says that, then that's what you can expect of them, that their religion doesn't require them to do anything except let God handle it, whatever that means.
All righty. Thank you, caller, for your call. Talktainment Radio is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's one that I'd like to share with you, and it's called Urban Flow. It is inspired by the evolution of the hip-hop and neo-soul subculture and provides a diversified social analysis, commentary, and intellectual satire that addresses some of the most challenging matters impacting quality of life today. Urban Flow provides a digital environment for listeners to share ideas and opinions on current events, politics, and the millennials, arts, movements, and many more, and provides a space for the engagement of established and new artists. This is hosted by Dorian Wingard, the other DL of Talk Radio. This premieres every Wednesday on TalkTainmentRadio.com, and that's radio the way it should be heard. If you would like to get in contact with the compensatory concept, you may by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and we will try to get you on. You need to make a donation to the program, and you can simply do that by contributing to and care of the compensatory concept, K&E World Network, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio, 43206. No personal checks will be accepted. Money orders and a bank check will be accepted, and we will email you your receipt, and all donations are final. Mr. Fuller, before we go back to the phone lines, and they are busy, just want you to speak briefly about your book, because we do have to promote that.
Okay, well, you've already done that, but I'll just review it again. And that is, it's a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism. Now, racism is described singularly as white supremacy. There's no other form of racism. There's no such thing as any black supremacy in a white supremacist system. That's a contradiction. That's not logical. It doesn't exist. So there's only one supremacy anywhere on this planet when it comes to color, and that is white supremacy. It's something that somebody invented a long time ago, and it's been passed down through the generations, and you can't solve any major problem anywhere on this planet without solving the problem of racism. That's any major problem as pertains to what? As pertains to the 9 areas of activity, the 9 major areas. Economics, you can't solve an economic problem anywhere on this planet without solving the problem of racism, because the racists are going to make so-called economic problems. Education, we're still arguing about the schools all over the world, trying to get people, quote, unquote, educated, whatever that's supposed to mean, and whatever an education is supposed to produce. You can't get it. And then all other areas of activity, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, war. So you can get this book by going to producejustice.com, because there are suggestions about what a victim of racism can do about this situation called the government of white supremacy.
All righty. Before we take the next phone call, Talktainment Radio has a new carrier. Listeners might have some difficulty receiving the program if their Flash player is not updated. So you have to update your Flash player. But we have a new carrier now, so that's one of the reasons why people have been having some difficulty listening. Again, I just got it in from the technician. Talktainment Radio has a new carrier. Listeners might have some difficulty receiving the program if their Flash player is not updated. So update your Flash player. Okay, Galen, what line do I go to? Line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Greetings, Mr. Fuller. White people who choose to practice racism, white supremacy, have been waging war against non-white people for centuries. In the midst of this war, I have heard some white people reveal some truths about the system of racism, white supremacy. The question is, what should be our codified response, reaction, action, thought on this white person?
All righty. Thank you very much. Mr. Fuller?
If I understand the question, the gentleman is saying that some white people tell the truth about racism.
Is that what you said, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the example of a Tim Wise, and there are several others who actually make money into doing this.
Oh, okay. Mr. Fuller?
Fine. Anybody who is telling the truth about anything, because the white supremacists are opposed to truth when it comes to interactions between people, that is deadly. to the system of white supremacy. The white supremacists deal in falsehood. They deal in illusion. They deal in making things appear to be something that is not. They are masters of malicious magic. And so any white person that steps forward and say, let's just tell the truth about what's going on and why. Let's just tell the truth about what black people are doing that's correct, what they're doing that's not correct. Let's tell the truth about white people and what they're doing that's correct, and white people, what they're doing that's not correct. Because everybody on the planet, each and every minute of each and every day, is either doing something that is correct, meaning something that should be done, or he or she is doing something that is not correct, something that should not be done. So therefore, any white person that steps forward and reveals the truth, you just say, well, here's a white person who's telling the truth. Just listen for the truth. Doesn't make any difference who's telling it. Just tell the truth. Now, what your reaction to the person should be is, okay, now that you have told the truth, what are you doing to solve the problem? I mean, other than that, which is the first step, but what about the other things that you're doing, particularly if it's a white person doing the talking, because white people can solve this problem in about 15 minutes. I always say that. The entire system of white supremacy that has been around for all of these multiple years, going down into, some people say as far back as 2,000 years, it can be wrapped up in 15 minutes. This is the modern age. And there are smart enough white people on this planet who can say, hey, I can do this in 15 minutes. I can do this at the snap of a finger. I can push all the buttons. They can make everything fall in place. And we will all be a new people in about 15 minutes. I mean, we got advertising. We got command of all the communications on the planet. We got absolute command of every move that people make who are of color. So therefore, we can turn this prison into a paradise overnight if we want to. But apparently, the evidence shows there's not enough of them who want to.
Okay. I got a question from the Gmail. It says, good morning, Mr. Fuller. I recently came across your show after my illusions were swept away. Thank you for your diligent efforts to spread the compensatory code. I believe that codification is a brilliant counter procedure to see if we can overcome this system, religion of racism, white supremacy racism. The statement about understanding and confusion in the beginning of the show is true. I was confused for a long time. My question is, what are your thoughts on the EEOC, that is the Equal Employment Opportunity Office, and other organizations? What questions should a victim of racism, white supremacy ask or do? And is it pointless to try to use the system set against us to shine the light back on them?
Oh, sure. You're inside the prison, so you have to work inside the prison because that's where we were all born. If you are a person with color in your skin, you're born inside of one government. That's the government of the system of white supremacy. That's the name of the government. It's the unofficial title. You won't hear that. You won't see it on some wall somewhere, or stenciled on some building, or engraved in the side of some building, the system of white supremacy. But this is what you actually have. You don't have anything else. There is no other system. It doesn't exist. So therefore, you're always working inside the system. So anything that's set up inside the system that's supposed to be addressing, quote unquote, the problems that the system has produced is suspect. So you go in and ask anyway. Anybody you talk to, you're talking to them inside of the prison. And you are a prisoner of war if you have color in your skin.
Okay.
You're already a prisoner of war. So you just ask people to get whatever it is you want. And they either give it to you or they won't.
Yes, sir.
And it doesn't make any difference what the label of the organization is. You just walk in and say, now this is what I need. Always ask for something constructive, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
See what I mean? That's the procedure.
Yes, sir.
Because ask for what should be given, accept what is granted, and compensate for the difference. That's what's in the textbook.
Okay. And from last week, question says, I work in a profession, this is Kayla, I work in a profession where I perform sexual play for both non-white and white males for a large amount of money and use very little time and energy in doing so. I do not have intercourse for money, only sexual play, and it is considered legal and taxable. I feel less degraded by performing sexual play than when I worked in retail, customer service, etc. And despite the sexual play with white men, I'm not attracted to them and view my job solely as one of the better uses of my time and energy to make a living while I work to end the system. Question is, I'm not attracted to white people and view them as racist suspects and wardens at all times, every day. My question is it possible that they could still be negatively influencing or affecting me because of this job?
Absolutely. And absolutely what is going on is something that shouldn't be going on according to counter-racist logic. We always follow the logic. But that applies to all of us in some measure or another. We're in the prison again. I have to keep saying that. So when you're in a prison, you just do what the prison rules allow you to do. So the prison warden says, well, so many prisoners will be allowed to go to the recreation room every week or every day or whatever, and do this and do that and to do the other. And so you have maybe just a buffet of options. In other words, you look at the list of options of things that, as a prisoner of war, you're allowed to do, and it's always in support of the prison. So whatever you're doing, is in support of the prison. So you may have an attitude about it, but you're doing it in support of the prison. Some people are working in the prison laundry. Some people are working, the warden might have a little sexual thing set up somewhere in an obscure part of the prison where things go on that are not supposed to be going on, but the warden is the warden, and it's all in support of the prison system. He says it keeps order. It keeps the prisoners in line. It keeps the prisoners in their place. So when you look at the world, for people who have color in their skin, is just a giant prison, then everything that's going on is in support of the prison. That's why we have to abolish this prison. We actually have to abolish the entire prison, dismantle it, and turn it into something that's not a prison, and that would be, logically speaking, a system of justice, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's something we don't have anywhere on the planet.
All righty. You know what, Galen, we're going to take the calls on the other side of the break, okay? So we're not going to go to them right now. Mr. Fuller, somebody mentioned before we go to break on page 296 of the Word Guide that you mentioned that the use of the word pornography should be avoided. Why do you suggest that use of the word pornography be avoided? This comes from Andrew.
The word pornography?
Yes.
Because you ask a person, what is it? In fact, the word pornography back in the 1970s, I believe, they were looking at different pictures and whatnot. I think one of the agencies, quote unquote, was looking into what constitutes pornography. I think they came to a non-conclusion.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, that's the music, so you know what that means. TalkTimeAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on WCRS-FM 98.3 Wednesdays and Sunday evening. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download the TalkTimeAtRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We are going to go to your questions and more emails or Gmails coming up next on TalkTimeAtRadio.com. Hey, TalkTimeAtRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can download the TalkTimeAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, and I am the co-host of the Compensatory Concept on Talk to Him at Radio with Mr. Neely Fuller. And you can call in if you'd like by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and I will not this week be able to get to your Gmails. But anyway, back to the show. And before we do that, just quickly, Mr. Fuller has written a book called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And you can get that by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And on the screen will become all the information so that you can get your copy of it, and you need a copy of it. Donations to the show can be made care of the compensatory concept to K&E World Network, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio 43206. No personal checks will be accepted, but money orders and bank checks will be accepted, and then we will email your receipt. And lastly, especially for s.e.x Media Group and others, Talk to Him at Radio has a new carrier. Listeners might have some difficulty receiving the program if their flash player is not updated. So update your flash player, and you'll be able to get through. Okay, through rhymes with two. Line number 2. What is your question for Mr. Neely Fuller Jr.?
Good morning, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby. Mr. Fuller, I think you would be an ideal candidate for the Supreme Court because you focus on justice. But I hear you don't get out much these days. My question is about what's your thoughts on abortion? Some people say it's a woman's right to choose. Others say it's killing a human being. Some people say these organizations are population tailoring minorities. I wondered what your thoughts were on it.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Well, basically what I've written is that all babies that start here should get here. You never know what you're cutting off. Now, but that means that don't start any unless you're ready, willing, and able to take care of that baby. And this mostly goes to non-white females because they are the carrier of the child. Don't expect to get any help. Now, the child may die in the desert or whatever, trying to get some place to another, not enough water, not enough food, not enough health care. But you got to have that in mind, that when you're carrying that baby, when you conceive it, it's on the way. And you have in mind one thing you have to think about when you're in the process of having sexual intercourse, which is the way that you produce a baby. You have to think in terms of, now, can I, standing alone, give this baby everything that this baby is going to need with little or no assistance from anybody else, particularly the person who helped me get this baby? This has to be cemented in your mind. Can I do this? Can I make this trip alone? Can I get up in the middle of the night and do all of that and then go to work the next day and work almost around the clock? Because now that baby is going to be the center of your existence. The white supremacists have that set up that way so that you're not going to get any help for the most part. You're going to be burdened. And a lot of the things you're used to doing, forget about it. You got a baby now on the way, which means a lot of the fun that you've been having prior to this is going to cease for the next 30 years or so. And you're going to have fun raising a baby because that's supposed to be your center place. I'm talking to the females now because this is the truth. That fella that you think you can depend on, forget about it, particularly in the northwestern hemisphere. Don't depend on that because it's not likely to happen. It's not likely to happen. You have to have that in your mind. You have to have it in mind, I'm able to take care of this baby. And so I'm going ahead and have it. This is just the way it is. We're prisoners of war. You're in this prison, and the prison is run very sloppily when it comes to taking care of children of color. The prison is set up to be sloppy. So if you care anything about that baby, you are on your own. You are on your own, lady. for sure. Don't think that anybody cares anything about that baby but you. And this is the truth.
All righty. Line. Okay, thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, caller. Line number 1, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question, please.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, thank you for your efforts, and I have 2 questions. The first is, what has been or is your most difficult challenge personally since you've become popularly known for your efforts?
Mr. Fuller?
I didn't get the real
Could you repeat the question, sir?
Sure. What has been or is your most difficult challenge personally since you've become popularly known for your efforts?
Oh, well, to have people do what I have in the beginning of the book, that one statement. If you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything, underline everything that you do understand will only confuse you. So when I look out on the streets every day, walking down the street or look at television, I can see the confusion. The victims of racism. We're the most confused people, and that includes myself, on the planet. We're confused about everything because we don't understand what is going on, even though many of us think we do. But what we don't understand is that we're in a system of white supremacy that's designed to do what? That's designed to dominate and mistreat people based on color in all of the areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And if we don't understand that, and that's the main thing that I try to get over to people, you have to understand that that's the system that we're in, that is tailor-made for that. And if you're a person with color in your skin, you're the target of that system. And your existence is supposed to be all messed up. That's what it's designed to do, mess you up completely in all of these areas of activity. Labor, law, sex, just messed up. Everything about you is supposed to be messed up. Nothing about you is supposed to be worth anything. That's what they're trying to do, except to honor the system of white supremacy. If you're a black person, that is your mission according to the white supremacists, to honor them and for you to be absolutely nothing, worth nothing, except that.
Okay, and what is your second question, sir?
The second question is, are you ever personally attacked, physically or otherwise, by white people, specifically in response to your efforts?
Oh, no.
And if so, how do you respond?
Oh, no, never. Why? Because they say people are not paying attention to him. They don't even understand what he's talking about. So we don't have to pay any attention to him. You know, we got it locked up. Their minds are so messed up, they couldn't see through nothing that he's saying. I mean, he sounds like somebody crazy. And we'll keep it that way because we are the people who run the communication systems all over the place. And he's just a wee small voice. There's a few of them out there, a few others out here who are right on point. But we got these people so drenched in nonsense, and we are going to keep them that way. We don't have to worry about people like Fuller, and if we ever do have to worry about people like Fuller, he's going to be out of here like in 10 minutes or less.
Wow. Wow. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And if you would like to get in contact with the show, you may by calling 877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. And I might be able to get someone, as I'm getting ready to do now. We have a lawyer listener in Michigan. Thank you, Lynette. She asked Mr. Fuller, do you think we need all non-white people to be codified in order to replace racism, white supremacy with justice? And is there power in small numbers? Since all white people do not practice racism, white supremacy, what percentage of non-white people do you think need to understand the codification concept to be more effective?
The exact number, I don't know, because I don't know the exact numbers of white people and non-white people on the entire planet. But I would say the overwhelming majority of non-white people will have to be codified. And that's going to take some doing. That's why I'm trying to do the best that I can, saying we have to have a counter-racist code. Meaning what? That ending racism and replacing it with justice has to be the priority for the majority of the people of color on this planet. When I say the priority, I mean more important than anything else. That's what we should be concentrating on. Now, that's a job, because it means that when you get up in the morning, just picture it. Picture that in your mind. All of the people of color on the planet waking up every morning saying, what can I do to replace this awful system of white supremacy with the system of justice? The system of justice meaning guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. No person meaning white and non-white. And guaranteeing that the person who needs help the most in every situation gets the most constructive help. A very simple formula. But the white supremacist system is so awesome, so big, it's going to take most of the people on this planet. That's why, in answer to the question that the person asked previously about Neely Fuller and the pressure on him, there's no pressure on Neely Fuller at all. Why? Because nobody is making that a priority. People wake up every morning thinking about, man, I got to go here. I got to go there. I got to do this. I got to do that. Man, I mean, I got 2 days off now, so I got to go and have some fun doing this and have some fun doing that. I got to call up so-and-so. And we're walking up and down the street sending text messages all day. But we're not talking about racism. We're not talking about racism with all those millions of text messages. And that's why nothing gets done, because it takes all of that, these text messages, to be about racism in order for it to be done.
Okay. Charles in Denver writes, Mr. Fuller, why do you think that statement you make at the beginning of the program is so relevant? And that is, if you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Mr. Fuller, why do you think that is?
Oh, because the white supremacists are the experts in causing mass confusion. You have people of color are on the move. We are running here and running there every day. I mean, just like I just finished saying, we got to do this, we got to do that. I got to go here. You hear people that expression, I got to. Man, I got to get out of here. I got to go here. I got to go there. But when you actually look at what people are actually doing, black people in particular, people who are classified as black, we're doing large quantities of nothing and doing it very well, which is exactly what the white supremacists want us to do, because that's what a confused people do, people who don't have really an aim that makes sense. When you really ask a person, and I said about those 4 questions that'll be in the next textbook, the updated version. What is it you want to do? We're talking about wants here. Everybody wants to do something. Every minute of the day is something you want to do if you're breathing. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? How do you plan to do it? And what do you expect the constructive result to be? I don't think there's 5 people on the planet right this minute, over 5, among the people of color, particularly black people, who are really seriously thinking about what those 4 questions really mean.
Okay. In response to a question that you answered, and I'm not going to give the name out, the person who wrote the letter said, "Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for answering, my question, and they said that I take your advice very seriously." And it was one of the answers that you anticipated. And she said, "Not that any caller or listener's story needs an epilogue, but I have always pursued multiple financial opportunities simultaneously, and so I will further develop those other avenues with the time and energy that I'm now removing from the sexual profession. That said, due to the system of racism, the sexual profession I was in is very attractive to many young black women like me, so I will make it a life goal to solve any problems in that area with other victims." Again, Mr. Fuller, thank you, and you have no idea how long that was on my mind. Thank you for answering my question. All right, Mr. Fuller, you hit a home run there. What line? Line number 1? Okay, line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Yes, sir. I was the one that asked the 2 questions about
very quickly, sir. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, was Mr. Fuller ever personally attacked? I didn't hear the answer. He said no initially, and then my line was dropped. So the question was, are you ever personally attacked physically or otherwise, and specifically in response to what you do, and how do you respond?
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Right. Somebody else asked me that question before, didn't he?
I think that was me. The call got dropped. Call got dropped.
Oh, yes, but no one has physically attacked me. I mean, no one has verbally attacked me. A couple of people made some remarks, I'd say back in the early 1990s, a couple of white men made some remarks about some of the things that I was saying in New York. These are the only 2 that I know of, other than a white lady who said that I was spreading hate when I visited her house. And so then I asked her a question, a logical question. I have no problem with people charging me with things, but substantiate your charge.
Right.
So I asked the lady, I said, okay, I'm spreading hate. Now, how exactly am I doing that? What have I said? Give some specifics about what I have said that constitutes what you call hate. And so the lady thought for a few minutes, and she said, "Mr. Fuller, I withdraw my statement." And I said, "Thank you very much, ma'am. Now we can continue to talk." See, it doesn't call for a lot of shouting and name calling all like that. The code speaks against that. If someone says something about you, say, okay, the first thing you look at is what? Are they telling the truth? That's all you're looking for. Why? Because the white supremacists deal in falsehood. So you don't want to deal in anything that's false. So if someone says anything about you, the first thing you want to know is not who's saying it, but are they telling the truth?
Yeah. What facts or data do you have that you allegedly said what you said?
And if they're telling the truth and it's something that needs to be corrected, then correct it.
Yes.
That's the law of compensation. See, we're trying to get to where we need to be. It's not personal, it's business.
Boy, that is powerful. That is powerful. And the second part of your question, sir, was what now? Oh, he's gone?
He actually answered it.
Okay.
It was how did he respond?
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Okay, Galen, where are we? Line number 1, line number 2? Line number 2, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question? You're on.
That's me?
You.
Oh, okay. Hi. This is Yester Guy from Chesapeake, Virginia. Hi, Mr. Fuller.
How to do?
Okay. The thing is, we are the most important people on the universe. Whatever happens depends on what we do and what we say. And just like you said, if we tell the truth and we live the truth and all we do and say, that's all that matters. One person at a time. Amen?
Mr. Fuller, you care to respond to that, please?
If I understood what you were saying, yes, each individual should try to be the type of person who is always doing something constructive.
Yes.
That's putting it in simple terms. See, it's no such thing as in between.
Right.
What you are doing and saying at any given time is either constructive or non-constructive.
That's
so
right.
you just simply, if people are talking to you and something like this, I mean, at some point you can just simply say, I have a question, ladies and gentlemen. And always be polite, always be courteous. Don't let anybody be more courteous than you. That's a part of the code. So you say, now, this thing that you all are talking about doing, is it going to have a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect? And I'll sit back and listen.
That's right.
And that's the way you present
yourself
to everybody all day long, every day, wherever you may be on the planet. And it should take you right where you need to go.
All righty. Thank you very much, caller.
You're welcome.
Okay. For Brother Chaz, since you asked a question and you gave me the permission to audit it, but I am not, but I will. I do thank you for condensing your questions to Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, he was asking, and to the audience also, what is the first duty or prime directive of any prisoner of war? And then he says, hint to the audience, there are two groups of humans in the USA, whatever that is, that are legally the property of a government entity that are not, and that we're not taught this. If you know the two groups, you will easily know the answer. But his question is, what is the first duty or prime directive of any prisoner of war?
Oh, the prime objective of any prisoner of war is to not be a prisoner of war as an individual person. And you do that by saying, now, how can I not be a prisoner of war in an entire planet? I can't escape the planet, at least not now.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do I do? Well, not be a prisoner. Now, how do I do that? I codify everything that I do and say.
Yes, sir.
And try to get everybody else who is a prisoner to codify everything that they do and say, so that this prison is eroded by what they are doing and saying, and it falls apart. The prison falls apart by what we are doing and saying. All the things that we are doing, plus all the things that we are saying, and put that combination together with all the prisoners that are in the prison system, and the prison no longer becomes a prison, because the people who are trying to make the prison or keep the place a prison cannot resist what you're doing and saying, because what you're doing and saying is scientifically designed to erode the prison.
Mm-hmm.
And then you make the prison into something that it should have been in the first place, and that is a non-prison and a planet that's populated by people who practice truth, justice, and correctness.
Okay.
The universal man and the universal woman.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Chaz, we're going to answer your other questions in the weeks to come, but let's now go to the phone line. And line number one, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question? Hello?
Is that me?
That would be you.
Yes. I would like to know how I can contact Mr. Fuller. I was told that his address is in the code, the book, but when I looked in there, his address is not in there.
Okay.
And I'd like to know how can he be contacted, the different ways he can be contacted, including the phone. Well, I know about the phone number, but I want to know how can he be contacted other than by phone.
Well, it's mostly through this program and by producejustice.com, because when people contact me, mostly they're doing it through the book. I try to do most of my work through the book. And talktainmentradio.com, the compensatory concept is something I use to promote the ideas that are in the book, but the specifics are in the book that I have written, but people can call in. And recently, I have been getting so many personal calls, I haven't been able to handle very many at my place of residence. Most recently, only
Okay, well, caller, that would be the way. I guess you can go to producejustice.com, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, because I can't talk to everybody in the world, simultaneously or even, it's just not enough time.
Okay.
And not enough of me.
I want to know what page is his phone number on his address in the book.
It was in some books, and it's not in all books.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, caller, for your call. And thank you, callers, for calling in to a wonderful program that you have made. TalkTainmenTRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, and radio the way it should be heard. We